Today we're gonna sew the Tuva Pants together. The Tuva Pants are a staple wardrobe piece and answer your need for a simple, relaxed, but flattering and modern pants with a mid-rise and a wide leg. This pattern is for anyone who already has some sewing experience and wants to learn in easy explained steps how to sew a good basic pair of pants with many possibilities to make them exactly how you want. You can find the link for the pattern down below in the description, and we're gonna start this tutorial after you've already printed and cut out the pieces and then also cut out already your fabric pieces. And if you're new here, hi, my name is Mela and I'm the face behind Sewing Amore, and if you want to see more behind the scenes and the processes, then you can follow me, for example, on my Instagram. Then here are all the pattern pieces that we need. We need the waistband 2 times cut mirrored, 1 zipper shield piece, 1 piece for the belt loops, then the yoke, we need it also cut 2 mirrored, 2 back pocket pieces, then 2 pieces of the front pocket 2 and front pocket 1, they're also cut mirrored, then 2 cut mirrored pieces of the front leg, and then the same thing with the back leg. Then there is the fly template, but we only need it as a paper pattern piece and we don't cut it out of fabric. Then we also need a zipper. I use here a 15 centimeter zipper. You can use a little bit longer and then just cut it to the length that you want, but I would not go shorter than 15 centimeters. Step number 1 is to lay the front pocket 1 pieces on top of the front pieces, right sides together, and then you pin the curved edge and then later sew with a 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeter seam allowance. I also wanted to quickly show the threads I use. I use for the inside stitching a normal thread, so this is for the stitching that I cannot see later, and then for the top stitching I'm gonna use this left thread, which is thicker and specifically as like a decorative stitch for jeans. And then as a bobbin I use all the time the same thinner normal thread. And then I want to try out the jeans specific needles in the size AT12, but I honestly didn't feel such a big difference from other AT12 universal needles. After sewing, I'm going to fold the pocket pieces over so that the wrong sides face each other, and I'm going to press here everything in place. I'm going to pull the seam a little bit apart and then press it nicely to the other side. As you can see, I changed now to the thicker top stitching thread because now we're gonna flip it over and top stitch from the right side, the curved edge. And you can stitch here with 1 row with a 1/4 inch 0.6 centimeter seam allowance, or you can stitch 2 rows like I did with 2 parallel rows with like 1/4 inch 0.6 centimeter in between them. But this is totally your own preference. You can do 2 rows throughout the whole pattern, or just do 1 row, or yeah, just top stitch however you like. Now lay the front pocket 2 pieces on top of the front pocket 1 pieces, right sides together. Pin the bottom edge and the inward facing edge together, and then sew the 2 edges with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance. But make sure to only pin and sew the 2 pocket layers together and not onto the front leg pieces. We're also gonna finish the raw edges of the fabric with an overlock or a zigzag stitch. Next thing is gonna sew some supporting stitches where all the 3 layers meet, just so everything stays in place and doesn't fall apart in the next steps. So we're gonna sew the 3 layers on the top where they meet and at the side together with a 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeter seam allowance. This pair of pants I've actually sewn for a friend, and I added some cute little heart details, so don't wonder if you see them. They're not part of the instructions, but you can of course add such cute details also. We're gonna put the left leg aside and only focus on the right leg right now. We want to connect the knot at the top edge of the piece with the corner at the bottom of the fly facing. It's easier to see in the video. And I'm using here a pen just so it's easy for you to see on the video, and it's anyways going to be inside and not going to see in later. But feel free to use chalk or anything else. Then we mark another line 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter away from the first one towards the outer edge, and we're gonna cut there. The next step can be a little bit difficult because we're gonna overlock or zigzag stitch the fly facing edges and the front crotch edge. It can be a little bit difficult because they're quite sharp edges, so make sure to sew slow here. I sewed here in 2 steps, so first I overlock the fly facing edges and then separately the front crotch edge, but you can do however it works for you. Now lay the front pieces on top of each other, right sides together, and pin the entire front crotch area. We're gonna sew here with a 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance, starting from the side and finish around 3/4 inch or 2 centimeters away from the edge, or until the zipper opening. So hold your zipper to the fly facing edge and see where the zipper opening is. So you're gonna sew approximately until the metal piece at the end of the zipper. And because I think it's a little bit difficult to see while sewing and also here in the video, I'm just going to mark exactly how I'm going to sew. So I have a 1 centimeter seam allowance to the edge, but then I sew approximately 2 centimeters longer, so until my zipper is opening. If you also have a 15 centimeter zipper, it's going to be around the same. I recommend sewing here again quite slowly and carefully because it is also a quite intense curve and we want it to be nice and neat. Also very important, don't forget to backstitch here at the end so it doesn't open up. While they're still laying on top of each other, pin at the top edge where the notch is through both layers and unfold and press that the fly facing folds over wrong sides facing each other. So we're gonna fold it over and make sure that the fly facing, which is not cut off, is folded over. And then we're gonna press it all in place. It's time for the zipper, so while they're still laying on top of each other, I'm gonna fold the side with the not cut off fly facing open. So I have access to the other side, and I'm gonna lay the zipper on the inner edge of the right leg, right sides together. The start of the zipper should be around 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter under the top edge, because we're gonna sew there the waistband. As you see, I pinned it in place and then I sew here. Of course, ideally it is recommended to sew with a zipper foot, but it's not needed as you see. I simply open the zipper and sew down to the bottom until I reach around the metal piece, and then I put the needle by hand in, put the foot up, and I close the zipper as best as I can, and then I just finish sewing to the end of the zipper. Once we're done with this, I'm going to close the zipper and fold the underlapping facing to the wrong side and top stitch the fold line next to the zipper. Here I'm actually not going to switch to the top stitching thread because it's not going to be really seen, but feel free to also use here the figure thread if you want. I'm going to top stitch here with the same method, so the zipper is open and I'm going to sew until the metal piece, and once I reach it I'm going to lift the zipper foot, close it, and then sew until the bottom. Now we're gonna match the notches again of the front piece, so we're gonna lay the other side on top of the zipper as you can see here, and we're gonna pin along the folded edge. Now we're gonna fold the right leg over and pin the other zipper edge to the left fly facing right sides together. We're gonna sew here as before and make sure that it is only the 2 layers, so the zipper tape and the fly facing. We're gonna open it up again and pin the folded edge as before. Now we're gonna put the fly template on top of the left leg so that the edges align. Mark the top stitching line and base stitch if you want to keep it all for sure in place. I just pinned here and then I was sewing on the line. You sew here also through the folded over fly facing, so make sure that you also sew through that layer. Because this top stitching is going to be very seen and very in your face, I'm very careful at sewing the curve. That's why I use the hand wheel to sew the curve, and then I just stitch carefully along the straight line. And again, you can also sew here another row. I top stitched here with 2 rows just for the look. Next step is going to be to fold the zipper shield lengthwise in half with the right sides together, and you're going to sew the slanted edge with a 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeter seam allowance. Then turn the right sides out and you're going to overlock or zigzag stitch the long open edge together, and once you've done that, we're going to press everything nicely. Now we're gonna add the zipper shield to the pants, so we're gonna pin the zipper shield over the zipper so that the longest edge of the zipper shield aligns with the edge of the cut-off fly facing on the right leg. It's important that you only pin it to the seam allowance and not to the front leg piece. So there's not a lot of space, it's actually quite tight, and we're gonna sew it with an edge stitch. And be careful that you only sew through the layers that we need. Here you can see quite well how it looks, so you're only gonna sew like on the overlocked edge. When we open the zipper now, there is not a real ending, it just, it doesn't hold together. So now we're gonna sew the left bottom edges of the shield and the fly facing together. Because I sewed a double top stitching row, I didn't have so much fabric to work with, so much space to work with, but you can definitely make it. I'm gonna show it. So you're gonna sew from the fly facing side, and you have this little piece. If you just top stitch with 1 row, you will have more space, and we're gonna stitch it to the fly facing with multiple times back and forth. You want to sew it very secure so it doesn't open over time. And also again, make sure that you only sew through those layers and not through the front leg pieces. It's finally time to work on the back, so the first thing we're gonna do is pin the yoke pieces on top of the back pieces right sides together. The bottom edge of the yoke should align with the top edge of the back piece, and the wider side of the yoke should be towards the crotch edge of the back piece. But if you're attentive, you can see that in the video I did it actually the wrong side around. So in the video you can see that the wider side is towards the side edge and not towards the crotch edge of the back piece, which is wrong, so follow the instruction and not the video at this step. And then we're going to sew with the normal 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter seam allowance, and we're going to press the seam open and finish the raw edge again with an overlock or a zigzag stitch. We're gonna press the seam downwards and then also top stitch from the right side again. I chose again to sew 2 parallel rows, but feel free to again top stitch however you want. Now you can see how I marked the back pocket placement on top of the back pieces. So I just took the paper pattern and then marked it with some chalk. Because it is on the right side, make sure to use some marking which is later not visible. We're gonna overlock or zigzag stitch the top edge of the back pocket pieces. If your fabric is fraying a lot, then also finish the other raw edges, but because my fabric wasn't fraying a lot, I didn't need to do it. You're gonna fold the top edge around 3/8 inch 1 centimeter over, wrong sides together, and then top stitch the fold with again 1 or 2 rows, however you want. I'm using here again the top stitching thicker thread, of course. Then you need to fold the other edges a 1/4 inch or 0.6 centimeter also over, wrong sides together, and you're gonna press everything very good. We're gonna pin the pockets with the wrong side onto the right side of the back pieces. Because we already have the placement set, but this is really only a guideline, please make sure that the placement fits to your shape and your preferences. After pinning, we're gonna top stitch all the sides of the pocket, except of course the top edge. And as you can see, I again sew 2 rows, and whenever I come to a corner, I just lift the presser foot, leave the needle in and pivot and sew it in one go. Lay the back pieces on top of each other, right sides together, and pin the crotch edges and sew with 3/8 inch 1 centimeter seam allowance. We're gonna press the seam open, of course, and it can be a little bit tricky at the bottom of the crotch edge. Of course, we're gonna finish the raw edge as before, and then we're gonna press the seam towards one side, doesn't matter, and then we're gonna top stitch the seam. This is optional, but I think if you top stitched all the other places, like I top stitched everything with 2 rows, so I'm gonna also top stitch here with 2 rows. And of course I'm going to top stitch towards the side where I pressed the seam to. Now lay the front piece on top of the back piece, right sides together, pin the entire sides and sew with a 3/8 inch 1 centimeter seam allowance. I unfortunately didn't film the sewing part, but the next thing is of course going to be to press the seam open and finish the raw edges. We're also of course pinning the inner edges together, so make sure that the crotch seams align with each other, so I'm really putting them on top of each other, and then from the middle I'm pinning down towards the bottom. Then I'm gonna sew there again with a 3/8 inch 1 centimeter seam allowance, pressing the seam open and overlocking everything. Next step is gonna be overlock or zigzag stitch one long side of the belt loop piece. Then fold the long raw edge 1/3 of the width over, wrong sides together, and press. So we want that in the end the belt loop piece is only 1/3 of the total width. Then fold the other third on top of that and press. So the goal is that the raw edge is going to be inside and the finished edge is going to be on the outside on top. We're gonna top stitch the 3 layers together with 2 parallel rows, so approximately 1/8 inch 0.3 centimeters from the edges, and then we're gonna cut it into 5 equal pieces. The top edge of the pants have 4 notches, 2 in the front and 2 in the back, and we're gonna attach the belt loops to the 4 notches, and then the 5th belt loop we're gonna attach to the back seam. It's not so easy to pin through all those layers, so I'm using clips here, and then we're gonna sew the belt loops to the pants with 2 rows. One at 1/4 inch 0.6 centimeters and one at 9/16 inch 1.5 centimeters seam allowance. Next thing is gonna be to overlock or zigzag stitch the bottom edge of only one waistband piece. Then lay the waistbands on top of each other, right sides together, and pin the top edges and sew with a 1/4 inch 0.6 centimeter seam allowance. Now we want to pin the waistband to the pants, right sides together. The raw edge of the waistband aligns with the top edge of the pants. The waistband is on each side around 1 3/8 inch or around 3 centimeters longer than the pants. So on each side there's gonna stick a little bit over, as you can see in the video, and the rest we're just gonna pin. We're gonna sew the entire seam with the 3/8 inch 1 centimeter seam allowance. Now we want to press the waistband up, and not only the whole waistband, but we also want to press the seam allowance upwards to the waistband. So the seam allowance that's inside, we want to press it up. After that, you're going to fold the ends of the waistband lengthwise, so how they were before, right sides together, and sew the waistband closed on each side. So I'm just pinning the ends together, and then we're gonna sew where the pants start. After sewing, you're gonna turn the ends right side out, so you fold the waistband lengthwise in half, but wrong sides together. The finished edge of the waistband should lay on top of the upwards pressed waistline seam and cover the raw edge. Before flipping it right side out, I've actually cut off the seam allowance because it's less bulky then. Once you have pressed everything, you can top stitch the waistband 1/8 of an inch or 0.3 centimeters from the edge. So we're gonna again lift the presser foot at the corner, leave the needle in and pivot and sew all around. You're gonna flip up the belt loops and folding the end of the loop wrong sides to each other and attach the fold to the top edge of the pants. You don't want to make them very tight because the belt also needs to fit in, so leave a little bit of room. And then sew here multiple times back and forth to really secure it. It was a lot of layers, so I actually also used the hand wheel sometimes just to go really slow. Now it's time to try on the pants and decide on the final length. The pants are made to be extra long in case you want a wide cuff or you're just a tall girl. So yeah, if you can cut off if it's too long for you, and then you're gonna overlock or zigzag stitch the bottom edge, and then you're gonna fold it over. You can fold it over 9/16 of an inch or 1.5 centimeters, or wider or less wide if you want. Then you will top stitch the bottom hem close to the overlocked or zigzag stitched edge. The only thing left is to add some closure. So you can add a normal button or a jeans button, how I did it, or you can also add a hook and eye. So if you use a button, then you use the button on the underlapping side, and then you're gonna make a buttonhole on the overlapping side exactly on top of it. Unfortunately, I forgot to film this, but that was the last step. And with that, your new pants are done. I really hope you liked the tutorial and the whole pattern. Let me know in the comments, and I would love to see your pieces, and see you next time. Bye!